boom, bro. Boom. Just completely look at Breanna Stewart's face.
She didn't recoil. She didn't fail. She took it in and started fighting. However, another person was seeing that video.
And now she's throwing up her hands. She's throwing up her hands like she ain't just damn me, boom. Lead forward and assault Sophie Cunningham, bro. Dirty fucking play there. That was a dirty play.
Someone far more powerful than a referee, a popular TikTok, or a Twitter timeline. Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA, has now viewed the video. She is also reportedly unhappy, according to claims from many people with knowledge of league operations. Not even near, because the league office was already opening a file as Breanna Stewart was raising her hands and acting as if nothing had happened. There are now rumors that Kathy Engelbert is actively thinking about suspending Breanna Stewart for 5 games. The New York Liberty's championship window won't be the only thing harmed by that suspension. As the 2025 season approaches, it will drastically alter the entire WNBA power structure. However, no one is connecting to this. One elbow isn't the only issue here. This is more than simply one Barclays Center preseason contest. This has to do with a pattern. This has to do with a message. This concerns whether the WNBA is at last prepared to safeguard its most important asset, not just on the court, but also in the boardroom, record books, and ratings. Before we discuss Kathy Engelbert, 5-game penalties, and the implications for the Liberty's dynasty aspirations, let's take a closer look at everything. We must return to the Barclays Center on Saturday afternoon, because the mainstream broadcast did not tell the whole story. The announcers were informal, and the cameras were wide. Additionally, the public was shown the intense physicality taking place on that court, as though it were a typical WNBA game. It wasn't that fan footage, that uncut, unaltered, sidewalk-level camera footage taken by a spectator at the Barclays Center. That's the video that went viral. That is the video that league officials are now viewing. Breanna Stewart's name is trending for all the wrong reasons because of that footage. This is a frame-by-frame breakdown of what transpired. A preseason match between the Indiana Fever and the New York Liberty had the intensity of a regular season contest. The Liberty had a well-thought-out, methodical, and, to be honest, cynical defensive approach going into this game. They had no intention of trying to beat the Fever. They had no intention of outshooting them. They intended to harass them. They intended to make it tangible. They were aiming to put Caitlin Clark under as much pressure as possible and challenge the referees to call it, and it was working. The Liberty defenders were hand-checking for the time being. They were packed. They were challenging the authorities to blow the whistle by clutching jersey fabric around the perimeter. And each and every time, the officials swallowed it. However, even the most forgiving referee in the building couldn't completely overlook the one really particular biomechanically intentional moment when the brutality went too far. One of the top 5 players in the world, Breanna Stewart, is a 2-time WNBA champion and past MVP. She went straight into the path of Sophie Cunningham, not to set a position, not to set a screen. She threw her upper body forward, pulled her arm away from her chest, and struck Sophie Cunningham squarely in the chest with her elbow. This preseason, you will witness the most blatant display of basketball theatrics. Like Sophie Cunningham walking into a wall, she instantly raised her hands in the air and turned to face the referee as if she were the innocent participant. Examine the play's biomechanics in slow motion. Stewart's feet are not in the arc. She is not motionless. Her body weight is physically projected forward. She's not preparing to make contact. She stretches her arm out from her body.
So this is a slow motion version of it. So as you guys can see here, just look at it. Boom, bro. Boom.
Look at the biomechanics of that play in slow motion. Stewart's feet are moving outside the arc. She is not stationary. She physically projects her body weight forward.
She is not defending herself. She's taking the lead. She is the aggressor, and league officials are observing the same thing as they watch the video. This is where the tale turns from controversy to something the WNBA hasn't seen in a long time. Sophie Cunningham did not go to the bench after taking an elbow from Breanna Stewart. She avoided glancing at her coach. She didn't give the training crew a wave. Sophie Cunningham realized something in that moment that Breanna Stewart seemed to have forgotten. So she straightened up, returned to her defensive stance, and spent the remainder of that basketball game making every single New York Liberty player extremely uncomfortable. 2 years ago, the Indiana Fever were a different team. You cannot intimidate this team. They are not a group that silently absorbs physicality. They are a team with an actual enforcer. Specifically, there was one sequence. The lane is driven by Caitlin Clark. A Liberty defender is rapidly approaching from the blind side, aiming for a forceful collision. And like a freight train, Sophie Cunningham rushes in from the weak side. She doesn't prod the defender. She doesn't give her a tap.
Sophie ain't flopped. She immediately, Breanna Stewart, a big gal. Look, she ain't throw her hands up.
The Liberty defender entirely gives up on her because she sets a screen that is so powerful, well-timed, and unyielding. Sophie Cunningham did not raise her hands. She didn't fall apart in a big way. She didn't give the referee the beseeching look that asks, "Did you see that?" She carried out the actions of enforcers. She stiffened her body, grounded her feet, performed her duties, and went on to the next performance. That contrast, that striking, indisputable, side-by-side difference between the data that is making Kathy Engelbert's decision much easier is precisely on Saturday. Without knowing what was at stake on Saturday afternoon, it is impossible to completely comprehend the significance of the possible suspension news. So let's discuss what Sophie Cunningham actually means to this Indiana Hoosiers team, both statistically and culturally. After 9 months of MCL therapy, Sophie Cunningham is back. 9 months. If you have ever recovered from a severe knee injury, you are aware of how physically and psychologically taxing it is. The moments at 3 in the morning when you truly don't know if your knee will ever feel the same way again, the uncertainty and the setbacks. She returned. She agreed to a $665,000 one-year contract. She could have chosen a lighter role, an easier route, or more money elsewhere. Because she wanted to remain exactly where she was on Saturday afternoon at the Barclays Center, standing between Caitlin Clark and anyone who wanted to challenge her, she signed with the Fever. In a preseason game, 5 of 8 from the field, 13 points, and an 8 rating, all while recovering from a severe knee surgery and serving as the building's most physically intimidating screen setter. Not only did the Indiana Fever regain its enforcer on Saturday, every team on their schedule received a message in high definition, slow motion, and viral fan film. This season, you will have to deal with Sophie Cunningham if you touch Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham is more than prepared to handle you, based on her performance on Saturday. Let's now discuss the aspect of this narrative that is not covered by the mainstream basketball media. Do you really believe Kathy Engelbert was unaware of that? Let's discuss the particular reports that are currently coming to light. Engelbert is reportedly aggressively going over the video from Saturday's Fever Liberty game, according to several people with knowledge of league operations. According to these allegations, the league is using the phrase, taking the matter seriously internally. Taking the issue seriously is more than simply a publicity stunt, to use commissioner terminology. It's a declaration of procedure. It indicates that the video has undergone official evaluation. It indicates that the officials' reports have been removed. It indicates that a disciplinary decision is being actively developed and that the biomechanical breakdown of the play has been examined. 5 games are the exact number being circulated. Take a moment to consider that. Breanna Stewart has 5 games. To put things in perspective, the New York Liberty's 5-game suspension at the beginning of the 2025 regular season would be disastrous for their entire championship architecture, not just their win-loss record. The basketball reality of Breanna Stewart's ban is much more complicated than the Liberty losing their best player for 5 games, so let's examine it. The New York Liberty's offensive scheme revolves around Breanna Stewart. Sabrina Ionescu's driving lanes are created by her spacing threat. She is the high post hub that causes the ball to move. The Liberty relies on her as their second unit anchor to keep leads. She serves as the franchise's functioning glue. The Liberty's starting 5 loses its mathematical identity without her on the floor. In opposition to Ionescu, teams can compress the paint. Everything on the periphery is switchable. They can eliminate the motion offense and challenge the Liberty to defeat them alone. The Liberty are more than just an inferior team when Breanna Stewart misses 5 games. This squad operates with a fully shattered plan and is structurally distinct. The layer that makes this even more significant is as follows. The Fever is not waiting for this suspension to end. They are constructing. They are changing. Sophie Cunningham was added back to full health. With a year of professional experience under her belt, Caitlin Clark is starting her 2nd WNBA season. The game has clearly grown in every way, and the body has been specially prepared to handle the roughness of the WNBA. With each game Breanna Stewart attends in street clothes, the gap between the Indiana Fever and the New York Liberty, which was already narrowing going into 2025, grows considerably. This dimension, however, transcends basketball entirely. Every roster, coaching staff, and front office in the WNBA will be affected if Kathy Engelbert suspends Breanna Stewart for 5 games, especially if the official league communication lists the physical contact with Sophie Cunningham as the main infraction. The message is straightforward. The days of unrestrained violence against Caitlin Clark are past. This is the aspect of Stewart that adds to the complexity of the narrative. She is not a bad person. She is among the best players in WNBA history. She is an Olympic gold medalist, a champion, a past MVP, and a truly significant part of the league's long-term cultural identity. Preseason game at the Barclays Center 2025. The entire basketball world is now watching it on repeat after a fan with a smartphone shoots it from 17 rows up. Now, Kathy Engelbert must make a difficult choice. She will support the claim that the league is finally serious about safeguarding its franchise player if she suspends Stewart. She physically draws a line in the sand. She conveys to all of the league's veterans that the days of testing Caitlin Clark without consequence are over. With the enormous new fan following that joined the WNBA primarily thanks to Clark, she gains credibility. The entire basketball world is waiting to see Kathy Engelbert's choice because both options have significant ramifications. We must return to Sophie Cunningham before we wrap up this tale, because the woman who started it all by refusing to be intimidated is the true hero of this narrative in a film that purports to be about Breanna Stewart's possible league suspension. Having had surgery to heal his knee, he is here for the celebration and is demanding dubs. That's the 2025 Indiana Fever. That's the spirit of a franchise that isn't content to just be the narrative. Their goal is to win. The Indiana Fever are currently the most dangerous team in the WNBA, with Sophie Cunningham returning, Caitlin Clark starting her 2nd season healthy and hungry, and Kathy Engelbert possibly about to send a league-wide message on their behalf. Click subscribe. Press the alert bell. Due to the fact that the next scheduled preseason game is against the Dallas Wings on April 30. You just cannot miss what follows next after all that transpired at the Barclays Center this past weekend. The narrative is not finished. It's only the beginning.